Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and if you're new here and you like this kind of content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. The BMW R1250R. This motorcycle is just plain different. What you have here is a naked roadster style motorcycle with a huge boxer engine with a tremendous amount of torque, and you have shaft drive and all the refinement that BMW has become known for. This bike is also quite a bit more expensive than a lot of its competitors. The biggest problem with this bike is nothing to do with the motorcycle's performance, it's actually to do with BMW's other models. The fact is that the GS, the RT, and the RS are such phenomenal motorcycles and sell in such good numbers that a lot of people tend to overlook this R1250R. However, today I'm going to review this bike and show you why you should not be overlooking BMW's R1250R. So let's talk about pricing and models on the R1250R. Now, my test bike is configured kind of oddly. It has some of the additional features that you can add on to it, like the heated grips and a heated seat, but it doesn't have the electronic suspension adjustment. So a base R1250R will come in just over $16,000. However, a lot of the bikes you see, and I'd probably recommend also getting the premium package, which adds a lot of the things together as a package, like the heated grips, the quick shifter, and things of that nature, the heated seat and other features. This motorcycle, as equipped, does not have a quick shifter, which I find very odd. Also, this bike does not have electronic suspension adjustment, or ESA. I believe that there was a period of time where they were producing these bikes where they had some sort of a part shortage and they were not able to put the ESA on. So what you get is manually adjustable rear suspension for rebound and preload, but you don't get the ESA, and there's no adjustment on the front forks. But yeah, in terms of the pricing, this is definitely one of the most expensive entrants in the category of sort of these roadster style bikes. But keep in mind, it's using their latest, very powerful Boxer 1250 engine, and it has shaft drive, and it has a lot of higher end features that you might not get on some of those more affordable bikes. All right, let me show you the riding position and seat height on the R1250R. Now, if you want a boxer bike and you want a bike like this, but you're maybe a little bit shorter, this could be a good option for you because it's definitely lower than something like a GS. It's 32 inches or about 820 millimeters. Let me put this on the side stand here and get on and show you the seat height. So I'm 5'10" or 1.78 meter. I have a 32-inch inseam. And you can see, you know, it's really a really easy reach to the ground for somebody in my height. And I think even somebody a few inches shorter than me would be pretty comfortable. Now, according to the spec sheet, this bike's pretty heavy at 530 pounds or like 230 kilograms. However, it doesn't feel too bad because the center of gravity with the Boxer engine is pretty low and the bike's pretty low to the ground. So it definitely feels, and it is, in fact, smaller and lighter than a GS, than an RT, or an RS. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to call it a beginner-friendly bike necessarily because it's way too powerful, but the seat height is really not bad. And I really do like having a center stand. The ergonomics and riding position of the R, they're a little bit sportier than you might think. So here would be an upright bike like a GS, something like that. But here's the R. You see there's quite a big difference in that position. So the R definitely leans you forward a little bit. It's not extreme, it's not like a sport bike or anything like that, but you do notice the lean on longer rides especially. The legroom is also not what you're going to get on like an adventure bike, but it's not an extreme leg angle and it's fairly comfortable. I would wish at my height for a little more legroom, and for me, the riding position is just a little bit more lean forward than I'm personally used to, although it just depends on what you're used to. It's still relatively comfortable, but you can see here kind of that forward lean. It helps get weight into the front tire for handling and traction, helps the bike handle as good as it does. The gear I'm wearing for this review, let's start at the bottom and go up. So I'm wearing the Alpenstars SMX ventilated boots. They flow through air, so on a warm day like today, my feet get nice, cool air. And they have sliders on them too. I'm wearing the Revit Reed SF jeans. They're kind of a slim fit jean. They're CE AAA rated, super comfortable. I love wearing these jeans. They have the Ghost armor, which you barely even feel. Then I'm wearing the Climb Marrakesh jacket. This is the most comfortable motorcycle jacket that I own. I own about 15 or 20 jackets, and this is the most comfortable. It's stretchy and it's breathable. So on a hot day like this, not only is it a stylish jacket that you can wear off the bike, but it's very protective, CE AA rated. It's stretchy, has the Ghost armor. It's one of my favorite motorcycle jackets ever. I love it. And then in terms of gloves, I'm using the Revit Dirt 3 ventilated gloves with the hard knuckle protectors. I'm using a Schuberth C3 Pro modular helmet. I like this helmet because it's good for my filming and my microphone setup. It's quiet, it's pretty aerodynamic, and it's a flip-up helmet, which is really convenient. And then I'm using, whoa, careful there. And I'm using a MSR hydration pack because it's hot and I like to stay hydrated. Really simple, basic hydration pack, very affordable. So I'll link all this stuff below and you should check it out. I'm gonna have Maggie get on and just, she can give us her impressions of the comfort for the passenger.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got the bike on a center stand, so it's straight up and down.
Oh, this is comfy.
It's comfortable?
Yeah. Not
Okay.
as nice as the one that you asked me to test the other time.
Well, that was the RT, yeah.
Oh.
So how's the seat feels good, and how about the grab handles? Well, we had kind of a toddler meltdown, but you can see, you know, the passenger seat for a naked kind of sporty bike, this is going to be one of the better options for a passenger because you have decent legroom and you have a decent seat and you've got grab handles. So unlike some of the sportier midweight naked options, this is not a bad option for carrying a passenger if you want a motorcycle like this. Let's cover the specs and features and take you on a tour around this R1250R. Let's start with the motor. It's the 1250 liquid cooled, partially liquid cooled anyway, boxer engine that we've come to know and love. 136 horsepower or 100 kilowatts and 106 foot-pounds or 142 Newton meters of torque, which is a tremendous amount of torque for a motorcycle like this. Let's talk about the weight. It's about 530 pounds, just under that, or about 240 kilograms. That's fully fueled up. And speaking of fuel, you've got 4.8 gallons or about 18 liters. That's a good size fuel tank for this kind of motorcycle. And it gives you a riding range of over 200 miles or over 320 kilometers. I regularly see above 45 miles a gallon, around 50 miles a gallon. So around that 4.6 to 5.2 liters per 100 kilometer. Pretty good fuel economy on this bike, gives you a pretty good riding range. I know I'm going to get some comments about, you know, this bike seems kind of heavy for what it is. And you're right. If you looked at it as a sort of a naked roadster or a naked sport bike kind of a thing, which it really isn't because it kind of defies a category. But if you looked at it that way, yeah, it is pretty heavy. I mean, keep in mind that my Yamaha MT-09 is 110 pounds lighter than this. The MT-09 is 420 pounds or 190 kilos. So that's a huge difference in weight. However, you have to keep in mind, huge boxer engine with huge torque. And you also have shaft drive, which adds quite a bit of weight. The shaft drive is nice because there's essentially no maintenance, no regular maintenance anyway, that you would have with the chain. So yeah, the bike is heavier, but that's because of the features and the design of the motorcycle. Let's take a tour starting at the front. You do have LED lighting. You can optionally get a dynamic or an adaptive headlight, I should say. You can see the front tires. So you've got 17-inch wheels front and back on this bike. It comes with Michelin tires, which are very nice. I really like these tires a lot. You've got huge brakes. I think they're 320 or 330 millimeter front rotor diameter, but I'll put that below in the text. 4-piston Brembo calipers on both sides. Super strong. You have an inverted fork here, and I'll put the travel measurement here in the text. You don't have any adjustments on the fork, however. Now, if you are to get an ESA equipped version, so let me talk about that now. This specific test bike does not have ESA or electronic suspension adjustment. So you have manual preload and you do have a rebound adjustment. If you were to get ESA, you could control the rear shock through the bike's computer, but all of the R1250Rs have a traditional front fork. They don't have any electronic controls for the front fork because it's not a tail lever bike. So moving our way around, you can see the front of the engine here, the radiator here. You've got some kind of plastic deflectors down here. I like the finishing of the engine. You've got this kind of gray color. This is also the ice gray color. So you have that. Now, you can see the intakes or the feeding into the airbox there. Exhaust runs down under here. You can see the starter motor. I think the battery's under here, at least it is on GS. You have a preload adjustment for the rear suspension, full pegs, brake lever, a chrome finished exhaust, which is large like all modern motorcycles. Two-piece seat. You can get a low seat if you want. Coming on the back, you do have grab handles. There's no rear rack, although I'm sure you can get something like that if you wanted. License plate holder, LED turn signals in the back. Now we can see our shaft drive. So BMW shaft drive, it's nice because you're not adjusting and lubricating and cleaning a chain. Also, there's no mess on the rear of the bike, so it just keeps things really nice and clean. This bike's equipped with heated seats, so you've got the switch here for the rear heated seat. This is the key to take your seats off there. This bike is equipped with a center stand, which is very handy. Jumping up to look at the controls, typical BMW mirrors, cruise control buttons, adjustable levers for both clutch and brake. This button will turn off your traction control. This activates your menu systems here. Stop start switch, heated grips. So this bike is interesting because it doesn't have ESA, but it has some of the other options like the heated seats and a few other things like that. So it's kind of an interesting way this is set up. It also does not have a quick shifter. You can get a quick shifter on this, and I'd recommend getting that, but my test bike does not have one. So it's the TFT we've come to know and love on these bikes. You know, BMW does one of the best TFTs in the business. You can scroll through options here at the top. So you've got, and it's really easy to control. You've got the Wonder Wheel, and then you've got up and down menu buttons. So if you go down, you can go into like the sport mode here, which gives you some different information about the traction control, your braking force. You can see your lean angles. It's kind of cool to have that. I do like to use that sometimes. You can also go and look at your vehicle information, of course, you know, tire pressures, temperatures, range to empty, on all that computer kind of stuff. So you've got all that. And then if you hit the up button on the menu, you can scroll through tire pressures, fuel gauge, odometer, trip computers, all that kind of good stuff. Horn, which is pretty loud for a motorcycle actually. And yeah, I think that's about it for the controls. All right, let's jump on board the 2023 R1250R. Get this thing out on the road. So when I first jump on it, what I notice is it doesn't feel big or heavy, you know. It doesn't really feel like the curb weight would suggest. You do see this huge engine sticking out, which I think is really cool. You know, you don't have many other motorcycles that have that. I just think it's a really distinguishing feature. Then you've got the typical BMW TFT. You know, I like all the controls. Everything feels premium, you know, nice. Get the R logo here. Starting up, you get the typical kind of boxer thrum or growl. When you rev the motor, you can feel the bike move a little bit side to side. That's typical of a boxer, something I enjoy. So we're going to leave the screen, I think, in a normal mode. We could go into sport mode if we wanted, which we would just do right here. Yeah, we'll leave it in normal mode. Maybe it's a little bit easier to read for you guys on the TV. I've got my quad lock phone mount here. All right, setting off on the R1250R, it definitely feels like I'm riding like a, you know, a kind of a sporty naked motorcycle, but you just have a little bit more feeling of weight and size than something like maybe a Speed Triple or Street Triple or MT-09 or anything like that. It has its own unique feel. That's the thing about the R, is that, holy Moses. So that's what you're going to notice about riding this bike. I mean, this is a relatively small, I was about to say light. I mean, I guess it's only relatively light. It's not really light, but for a bike with 135 horsepower and 106 foot-pounds of torque, this is a pretty small, lightweight bike. So the sense of acceleration, like it wants to lift the front wheel quite a bit. Holy Moses! I mean, I'm not exaggerating. This thing pulls really, really hard. Like, it's impressive. This bike is seriously fun to ride. It's definitely more fun and has more grin factor than a GS, an RS, or an RT, and especially an R9T, because again, you're putting this huge motor in kind of a small bike, and you know, without the bodywork and stuff like that of the other bikes, it just has a more raw, more connected feeling. What it doesn't have is some of the luxury amenities of the other BMW models, you know, obviously. But that's why you buy this, because you want something that's a bit more stripped back. It's really nice to have cruise control. So this is a section that's heavily patrolled for speeding, so I can set my cruise control at 59, 60 miles an hour, and I won't have to worry about getting a speeding ticket. So a couple observations. Engine heat, yeah. So my right leg does get kind of warm. It's not the worst engine heat I've ever felt on a bike, but it's noticeable. It's there. I don't know why it's more on the right leg than the left leg. It also depends what kind of pants you're wearing. In the riding jeans, I seem to notice it more. So engine heat is kind of a thing, but it's not terrible. There's bikes that are worse. The other thing is talking about comfort. You know, some other reviews have said that this bike's really comfortable. I mean, I don't know. I kind of disagree with that a little bit. I guess it's a relative thing because most BMWs are like supremely comfortable, and this one really isn't. I don't find the seat to be very well padded. Obviously the wind protection is just a function of this being a naked bike, but having the wind blast gets old after a while. But it's the riding position. Like, it has a surprising amount of forward lean. I was kind of expecting it to be a bit more upright. So it's kind of like a sporty riding position where you have to kind of arch your back or lean forward into the bike. But it's not a sport bike. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. I'm kind of confused a little bit by that. Probably contributes to better handling, keeping a bit more weight on the front tire. But I don't know, I'm just not all that comfortable. So I'll use the cruise control a lot and kind of lean back and be a little bit more upright, so kind of like this. So because this bike has so much torque, like we're going up a pretty steep hill here, the roll-on power is tremendous on this bike. So even in 6th gear, going uphill, 65, 70, 75, 80, like that's 6th gear, okay? Now if I drop down to like 3rd gear, holy crap! Yeah, this thing will rip your arms off. It's really fun. It's really engaging to have this much torque on a bike like this, and it really sets this bike apart from the other bikes in the class. Now I know some people are going to say, oh, you're in road mode, you have less power. Nope, that's not true. Road mode has full power. A lot of people don't understand that. If you go into dynamic mode, all it does on this bike is change the throttle response. It does not change the amount of power that the bike makes. If you go into rain mode, you do get reduced throttle response. I think the ultimate power is still the same though in rain mode, at least on the BMW. And then you have the eco mode, which is horrible. I don't like the eco mode because, I'll show you eco mode there. Eco mode does give you less power. It does something with the valve train. You will get a little bit better fuel economy, but I don't like it because when I want to go around traffic really quickly, the power's not there. It's a dramatic difference, and so I never use road mode on these Beamers. I mean eco mode. I'm sorry, I really don't think that's a good idea. I typically use road mode because this bike doesn't have the dynamic ESA. This has just traditional suspension. The riding mode's not doing anything with the suspension, obviously, so it does also change your traction control and ABS intervention levels a little bit into different modes, of course. So here's a feature I think is underappreciated on these bikes, the hill hold control. You see this little thing in the upper left? So right now you see how I'm parked downhill, and the bike is holding itself in place. To activate that, basically you squeeze the front brake lever kind of hard, and then the bike holds in place. You see, without it, the bike's going to be rolling forward. But if I'm stopped somewhere, I can just activate that feature and then it holds me in place. Also, if you just go to take off, it automatically disengages. So that's something I really appreciate on these BMWs, and there's a few other bikes that have it. All right, let's get this thing on some twisty roads here and really try my best to show you how good this thing is. Holy crap. God, it accelerates hard. Damn, dude. Wow. This thing is surprising. This is shocking to me. I don't know why. I just didn't expect it to be this composed, this sporty, and this much fun. But it will really surprise you. It's so composed to ride fast on a twisty road. You're not expecting it. It's so composed. Even though the suspension is not adjustable, I mean, it's still really good. And this motor is just so strong. Yeah. The motor is so strong and the handling is so good. It's so easy to ride fast on this bike, and actually you could surprise some much supposedly higher performing bikes on this thing. It's really surprising. It just feels very neutral, very natural, and it's easy to ride it fast. Probably has something to do with the Boxster engine. Not only does it have a lot of torque and everything, but also I think the layout of the Boxster, it just makes motorcycles handle better. I think there's a reason for that, to do with the rotating mass of the engine and the crankshaft and things like that. But whatever it is, it's just, it works out really well. Show you some acceleration here. And in terms of the brakes are phenomenal on this bike. It doesn't have a lot of like dive or anything, so when you're hard on the brakes, it's really very, just, you can stop on a dime on this thing. Let me show you the brakes again. Man, the brakes are so strong. One of the best things about these newer Boxster motors is that they rev out. Like, not only do you have the low end torque, but it's actually pretty rewarding to rev it all the way out to whatever it is, 9,000 RPM. They have top end to them with this shift cam system that these newer 1250s have. I'm a huge fan of this motor. If you can't already tell, I'm just a huge fan of it. There's so many things I like about it. You know, some people will see this kind of expensive BMW and say, oh, that's a bike for rich old men or something. Well, I mean, maybe, but dude, this thing is a lot sportier and more performance oriented than you would ever think. Discussing competitors to this bike is a little bit tough because it is quite unique if you look at sort of what it offers and where it's positioned in the market. I think the most direct competitors would have to be like an Indian FTR 1200, maybe a Harley-Davidson Sportster 1250. You could be looking at maybe a Triumph Speed Twin. It's like that big displacement kind of roadster style bike. It's not a sport bike and it's not a vintage bike. Well, you could, if you wanted vintage, you could get a Bonneville T120. But I think those are kind of the main competitors. The way the BMW stands out, shaft drive, I think it's the only one with shaft drive. And this bike has the most power and torque of any of those, even more so than the new Harley with the new RevMax engine. So it's unique, it's powerful. You've got the Boxster, you've got the shaft drive. What about BMW's R9T? So I have a review on the R9T and you can check that out on my channel. I'll try to link it here somewhere. The R9T is a more classic feeling bike. It's a bit more lower spec. It has the older engine, the old air oil-cooled engine, as opposed to the 1250 motor. And there's a tremendous difference in performance. That motor's strong, but this is on a whole nother level of power and torque and acceleration and refinement and all those things. This is just a higher end bike overall. The R9T is a bit different. I like that bike, and there's some cool variants, so you should check out the R9T if you're looking at an R1250R. Some people are going to want to compare this to like a naked sport bike, but that's not really what the R is going towards. So like a Super Duke 1290, or I don't know what else is out there, like an MT-10. Those don't really compete with this. Those are sportier, faster, more aggressive bikes. This is a bit more laid back and a bit more, I don't want to say grown up, but yeah, it's just kind of a bit more grown up, a bit more mature than those bikes. We've covered a lot of this in the review up to this point already, but let's just summarize the pros and cons. So for me, the cons are you don't get adjustable front suspension. I think for $16,000, that's a bit of a miss, right? I think that's something you'd like to have. It is a heavy bike, so that is a downside, but keep in mind it does have the boxer engine, the shaft drive, and that's why you're getting that higher weight. I also think for this price point, they should backlight the switches. So the switches should be lit up at night when you're riding at night, and it's just something I keep picking on BMW for. A lot of other manufacturers, Triumph and Ducati and others have been doing that, even KTM, and BMW still doesn't have the backlit switches. The other downside, I think, is the bike is a bit expensive when you compare it to some of the other options that you might be looking at in sort of a naked roadster style bike. Now, what are the pros? So the pros for me, absolutely, the torque of the engine is addictive. 106 foot-pounds of torque is pretty crazy for a motorcycle of this style, and it really will rip your arms off when you want to. So I really do enjoy that. The motor in general is a pro for me. It's got good low end, it's got good top end, it's got some character to it. I really like these new boxer engines. Next up for me is the handling. The handling on this bike is way better than you would think. For a bike that weighs this much and you might think is kind of a rich old man's bike, I mean, sorry, but that's what some people think. It handles phenomenally well. It probably has to do with the boxer engine, but BMW is just really good at sort of chassis engineering. Other pros for me, the build quality and refinement's really good. I really like the TFT, it's one of the best in the business. And as a unique feature of this bike, it does have shaft drive, so no chains to clean, lubricate, and adjust. That's pretty cool. Final thoughts on BMW's R1250R. I'm really glad I got this bike for test because it's really very different and very unique, and it's a riding experience that you don't really get on other motorcycles. It's just, I would recommend going to try one out because it may challenge your expectations, it may challenge your preconceptions about it. It's sportier and faster and better handling and more fun than you might think. So if you're looking for a boxer engine, something with a ton of power and torque, really sporty, really kind of unique in sort of a naked roadster style bike, man, this thing is really, really awesome. I've really enjoyed my time with it. Whether it's right for you, you're gonna have to look at the other competitors out there. You're gonna have to take one for a test drive if you can at your BMW dealer and see if it's right for you. But keep in mind the pros and cons that I've talked about in this video. So I hope this was useful and informative. Please consider supporting independent motorcycle journalism here at Big Rock Moto. There's ways to do that in the video description and the pinned comment below. Other than that, ride safe, and I'll see you out there.